Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. It looks like Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois, the rising British prospects, are going to provide a moment for heavyweight boxing fans to savour, to look forward to, something we haven't had a lot of in 2019, a competitive fight. Because let's face it, 2019 has been pretty awful so far, pretty dire. All the top guys are A-siding each other. Some of them are turning down offers for millions of dollars when they don't have any other better prospects right in front of them, but they think they can get more later on. It's been pretty tragic, and everyone involved deserves an uppercut because we've been left with fights we didn't want to see. And generally, the opponent is someone that isn't an overmatched opponent, and it really hasn't been good enough. So a fight between Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce, which is looking increasingly likely, that is something to look forward to. So the British Boxing Board of Control, which had ordered that fight for the vacant British heavyweight title a number of weeks ago, then extended the purse bid. It has now come in with its latest circular, see here on screen, the 24th of April 2019, the heavyweight brackets vacant Joe Joyce v Daniel Dubois. Following agreement being reached between the parties, the above contest to be promoted by Frank Warren will take place on a date and at a venue as yet to be advised. Very good news. This is a very good fight, and this is a heads up by the British Boxing Board of Control that the two will be fighting each other. It hasn't officially been announced, but I wasn't expecting anything to be announced before Daniel Dubois' fight at the weekend with Richard Lartey, the WBO Africa strap holder, who he is expected to beat handily. So should he get through that, we will see Joyce and Daniel Dubois getting in the ring by the looks of it. Very good news for heavyweight boxing fans. This is as close to a 50-50 as I think I've seen pretty much all year. There was the Oscar Rivas and Bryant Jennings fight, regarded as pretty much a 50-50. We've got Dillian White with Oscar Rivas. That's pretty much a 50-50 for July. And now this fight. Outside of that, most of them are sort of 70-30 at best that we've been, treated to by the promoters and broadcasters, which it's a sad indictment of the heavyweight division, with broadcasters and promoters really not delivering the fights that fans want to see. And the fighters do need to actually look at that situation and realize that the fans who fund the sport aren't getting what they actually want to see, which is competitive matchups. And I've seen a lot of people really very happy about this Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois news, just because, we haven't been treated too much so far. 2019 has been a barren wasteland for the heavyweight division. And this fight, which I covered when it was announced it was being ordered by the British Boxing Board of Control, there was a number of views and divergent views on who would win. It seemed to be about 50-50 for Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois, and I do believe it is as close to a 50-50 as we've seen all year. And the two, they could have gone a different direction. Joe Joyce, he recently beat Berman Stavern, got the WBA gold title, a minor trinket which could have set him up for a fight with either Manuel Cha or Trevor Bryan in the WBA, and he could have been fighting those guys to take over one of their also minor straps, because there's now 4 heavyweight champions within the WBA, and Joyce with the gold title is considered one of them. He's above the rankings. He was also the mandatory challenger to Ajit Kabayel, the European champion. Plus there would have been potentially other options out there for a rising prospect, depending on who was available. Also, Daniel Dubois, he's got the WBO Europe strap, potentially soon to be the WBO Africa strap. He also has the Southern Area title, he's got the WBC Youth title, and there's one or two others as well. I think there's a WBA Intercontinental, it was one of those sorts of things. But they both had different options, and they've both been rising the ranks, and this is a very dangerous fight for both of them. And let's face it, Joe Joyce at 33, he turned pro late. This is a pretty dangerous sort of character, and Daniel Dubois, one of the hardest hitting and most hyped prospects within the heavyweight division. It's not a gimme fight for either one of them. It's a very tough cover. And Joe Joyce, he's looking for a title shot, and this is a sort of fight that, if he came through this, could propel him on to the next level. I sort of look at this fight and go, well, remember there was Otto Warren and his countryman Adrian Granat. They were both sort of at the end of their prospect phase, which Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce are approaching. Let's face it, they are. With the win over Razvan Kajanu and Kevin Johnson, Daniel Dubois is looking to enter into that next step of that sort of prospect/fringe contender stage. And Joe Joyce, with his most recent win over Berman Stavern, former WBC champion, and a win over Joe Hanks back in December, he's similarly on that fast track, moving through the prospect phase onto bigger things. And this fight, it would confirm the winner as being a fringe contender/contender. It depends however you really cut it within the heavyweight division, but they would be, closer to a heavyweight title shot otherwise than they would have been, because they do have rankings, both of them across different sanctioning bodies, and a fight between the two, it really is going to do wonders for their profile, for their career. But make no mistake, I mean, the press conferences, that sort of stuff, it's probably going to be pretty dour stuff because they're both pretty down-to-earth characters. They don't say too much. They don't necessarily say too much to set the world on fire. Not exactly the most savvy on camera, but Joe Joyce, he has been getting better, but Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce overall do sort of struggle to really jazz things up in front of the camera. But in the fighting stakes, a very competitive fight. And it'd be hard to, I'm just thinking, I'm going back and forth on my mind, who would win this fight? Because Joe Joyce clearly does, even though he doesn't necessarily have that same sort of snap with some of his punches that Daniel Dubois does. He has this whole sort of volume thing going for him, and he really hits with a hard clubbing punch and a lot of them. His defense is his offense to some extent, but because he is open to being hit, and he was tagged by Berman Stavern a number of times, a guy like Daniel Dubois with his heavy hands, he could really take advantage. So I guess the other thing to consider here, and I did sort of note this in a recent video where he's left Abel Sanchez, he's now with Adam Booth, a third trainer in 18 months. Were there other changes to come? And what I meant by that, and I did say this in the video, was maybe he's going to have a change of promoter. He was promoted by Richard Schaefer after leaving the Richard Schaefer and David Haymaker Ringstar arrangements to be just under Ringstar in the United States. Who knows if we are going to see a shift to Frank Warren? We'll have to see, because they have been making a lot of changes. They said they can't make mistakes in Joyce's career. 3 trainers in 18 months. They were looking for the right fit. He's now based back in the UK after being in the US for less than a year. So who knows if there is going to be other changes like a new promoter in the works. And I'm sure someone like Frank Warren would love to have Joe Joyce in his stable of fighters. But this one, very dangerous. And for Joyce, if he loses this, it would be very hard to see him sort of coming back quickly to potentially contend for a heavyweight title. Just for the fact that losing to a rising prospect, and he is considered one of the more dangerous sort of heavy-handed guys in the division, it might be hard to get him the sort of opponents quickly to try get back in position, because having a loss, it's not fatal, but it can really stunt your chances of getting to a title quicker. Let's face it, that's just the reality of the situation. And at 33 going on 34 soon, a loss for Joyce, it could spell disaster for his career. Daniel Dubois, if he was to lose, well, it wouldn't be so bad because he's only 21 years old. If he lost and it was a very credible performance, he could still come back. He's got years and years left in his career. He is developing. So for me, this is not exactly something that, for Daniel Dubois, it's a very tough fight, but if he lost, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Where for Joyce, I think there is a bit more on the line here. It's really sort of make or break stuff for him. But I guess for Daniel Dubois, he must see something in this fight to go, yep, I think I can take Joe Joyce and beat him handily, because both sides clearly are going through with this fight. They've come to an arrangement, and it's going to happen at some point, by the looks of it, in the next few months. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.